They weren't supposed to win. Not here, not against Bayern, not in Munich. Inside the very stadium painted in red, surrounded by 70,000 German fans waiting to celebrate. Chelsea were broken, their captain suspended, their coach only temporary, and their season already a disaster. But sometimes, football ignores logic and writes poetry instead. Because on that night, the night when everything seemed lost, a miracle was born. The kind that doesn't happen twice. The kind that turns pain into legend. And it all started with a single corner in the 88th minute. Before the match even began, the script seemed already written. Bayern Munich were not just the favorites, they were the hosts, the powerhouse, the machine of Europe, playing in their own temple, the Allianz Arena. The city of Munich was painted red that night. Tens of thousands of fans filled the stands, waving flags, singing songs, waiting to witness what they believed would be a coronation, not a contest. Chelsea were the uninvited guests. A broken team stumbling toward what looked like their inevitable end. They had fired their manager months before. Their captain, John Terry, was suspended after a reckless red card in the semi-final. Ramires, Ivanovic, and Mireles were also out. Even their interim manager, Roberto Di Matteo, wasn't supposed to last until summer. He was there just to keep things together, or at least, that's what everyone thought. And when you looked at Bayern's lineup, Neuer, Lahm, Boateng, Schweinsteiger, Robben, Ribéry, Müller, it didn't feel like a fair fight. They weren't just stronger on paper. They were sharper, younger, and playing at home. For Bayern, it was destiny. For Chelsea, it was damage control. From the opening whistle, that difference showed. Bayern pressed like predators. Robben and Ribéry tore through the wings, firing cross after cross into Chelsea's box. Müller was everywhere, finding spaces nobody else could see. The Blues could barely keep the ball for more than a few seconds. But every time Bayern got close, Petr Cech was there, gloves strong, eyes calm, as if time itself slowed down for him. Ashley Cole, David Luiz, Cahill, all of them threw their bodies on the line, defending with desperation and pride. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't tactical genius, it was pure survival. And somehow, as the minutes passed, survival started to look like belief. Every blocked shot, every last-second tackle, every save was a silent reminder. Chelsea hadn't come to witness Bayern's victory, they had come to rewrite it. On that night, no one believed in them. Not the crowd, not the pundits, not even the statistics. But football has a strange way of punishing certainty. And before the world realized it, the story everyone thought they knew was about to be torn apart. For Bayern Munich, this wasn't just another final, it was their final. Everything about that night was built for them. The stadium, the crowd, the confidence. In Germany, they called it Finale daheim, the final at home, a once-in-a-lifetime chance to lift the trophy in front of their own people. They had been here before, 2010, beaten by Inter Milan. That loss hurt. This time, they swore it would be different. The team was stronger, hungrier, and sharper. Jupp Heynckes had molded a side that combined German discipline with lethal creativity. Robben and Ribéry were nightmares on the wings. Schweinsteiger commanded the midfield like a general, and young Thomas Müller was emerging as the new face of Bayern's future. And that dominance showed. From the start, it was one-way traffic. Chelsea barely escaped their own half. Every attack from Bayern felt inevitable, like a storm that was slowly closing in. Ribéry's flicks, Robben's shots, Lahm's overlapping runs, the pressure was suffocating. The statistics painted the picture. Bayern had over 35 shots, Chelsea had fewer than 10. Bayern controlled more than 60% of the ball. Every minute that passed, it felt like Chelsea's miracle was slipping further away. Then in the 83rd minute, Munich erupted. A deep cross from Toni Kroos floated into the box. Müller rose between two defenders, and with a bouncing header, the ball hit the ground and flew past Cech. The stadium exploded. Red flares, chants, tears of joy. Bayern were finally there, 1-0. For Chelsea, it was a dagger to the heart. Everything they had fought for, every save, every tackle, every ounce of belief, shattered in an instant. Players dropped their heads. Di Matteo stood frozen on the sideline, silent. And as the clock ticked toward 90, even the most loyal Chelsea fans watching around the world began to accept the truth. It was over. Or at least that's what everyone thought. Because sometimes football waits until the darkest possible moment before it reminds you why it's called the beautiful game. 88th minute. 2 minutes from the end. The trophy was already being polished. Bayern fans were singing louder than ever, and Chelsea's players were barely standing. Their bodies were drained, their spirits even more. But then came one moment, one corner that changed football history. Juan Mata walked toward the flag, slowly placing the ball down. The camera caught Drogba in the box, standing still, eyes closed as if he was saying a silent prayer. The same man who had carried Chelsea through a decade of glory was now about to take his final swing at redemption. The corner came in, curling, fast, perfect. Drogba rose higher than anyone, twisting his neck midair, and smashed the header into the top corner. Goal. For a second, the entire stadium froze. 70,000 voices turned silent. Then, from the small section painted in blue, an explosion of disbelief. 1.1. In one instant, despair turned into hope. Bayern players stared in shock, hands on their heads. Neuer punched the ground. Ribéry screamed at the sky, because deep down, they knew they had seen this before. The moments where control turns into chaos, and for Chelsea, it felt like destiny had just opened its eyes. They weren't supposed to be here. They weren't supposed to fight back. But somehow, in the most impossible moment, Drogba had reminded the world that belief is stronger than statistics. The clock ran out. Full time, 1.1. The miracle was alive, and now it was heading into extra time, where legends are made and hearts are broken. As the whistle blew for extra time, the energy inside the Allianz Arena shifted. Bayern fans were still louder, still confident, but that small seed of fear had been planted. They had been here before in control, then undone, and now Chelsea were breathing again. But survival had come at a price. Every Chelsea player looked exhausted. Legs heavy, lungs burning, eyes half open. They had defended for over 90 minutes, and now they had to do it all over again. Bayern, meanwhile, smelled blood. They attacked from the first second of extra time like they were chasing ghosts. And then, the nightmare almost came true. Early in extra time, Drogba, the same hero who had just saved Chelsea, turned villain for a moment. Franck Ribéry darted into the box, lightning quick, and Drogba's mistimed challenge caught him. Penalty. The stadium erupted again, this time with fury and relief. Bayern had the chance to take back control. Arjen Robben, the ice-cold winger, grabbed the ball. He had missed big moments before, but this was redemption, a chance to write his own story. Robben ran up, struck low to the right, but Petr somehow again guessed correctly. A strong right hand pushed it away. The unthinkable had happened. Robben stood frozen, the crowd gasped. Cech roared. It wasn't just a save, it was defiance. The kind of moment that breaks one team and breathes life into another. From that point on, Chelsea played with something else, not energy, but destiny. They defended with 11 hearts and no fear. Gary Cahill limping but refusing to stop. Cole sliding into every pass. Lampard shouting until his voice was gone. It wasn't football anymore, it was faith. Every clearance, every block, every desperate tackle felt like the universe giving them one more chance. And as the final whistle of extra time blew, both teams collapsed to the ground. For Bayern, disbelief. For Chelsea, survival. Now everything came down to one thing: penalties, where history remembers heroes and forgets the rest. After 120 minutes of agony, it all came down to penalties. 5 kicks to decide everything. For Bayern, it was destiny. For Chelsea, it was survival. The stadium was trembling. Players could barely stand, breathing heavy, hearts pounding. Juan Mata stepped up first for Chelsea and missed. Neuer guessed right. Advantage Bayern. The crowd exploded. Lahm scored his. Munich could already feel the trophy. Then came David Luiz. A deep breath, a long run, and a rocket into the top corner. No fear, 1-1. Cech saved the next Bayern shot. Lampard buried his, and suddenly Chelsea were back. Neuer, yes, the goalkeeper, scored for Bayern. Then Ashley Cole answered, calm as ice, and then came Schweinsteiger, Bayern's leader, the local hero, the man everyone trusted. He walked up, slow, steady, and hit the post. Silence, 70,000 people frozen in disbelief. Now it was Drogba, the man who had carried Chelsea for years, who had saved them minutes before. He placed the ball, looked at Neuer, and with one perfect strike, sent him the wrong way. Goal, Chelsea, champions of Europe. Against all odds, in the darkest place imaginable, a miracle was born. As Drogba's penalty hit the net, time seemed to stop. Players collapsed, tears streaming down their faces. Petr dropped to his knees, Lampard screamed to the sky, and Drogba, the hero of the night, simply smiled through disbelief. They had done it. Chelsea, the team no one believed in, had conquered Europe, in Bayern's own fortress, against all odds. Around the stadium, the contrast was brutal. Bayern's fans stood frozen, their players staring into the distance, unable to understand how victory had slipped through their fingers. Schweinsteiger hid his face. Robben walked off in silence. It wasn't just defeat, it was heartbreak. And as the blue shirts lifted the trophy, the symbolism hit harder. John Terry, suspended, helpless in the stands, came down in full kit to celebrate, joining his teammates in what became one of football's most unforgettable images. Roberto Di Matteo, the interim coach no one took seriously, was now the man who had delivered Chelsea's greatest ever night. That victory wasn't just about tactics or luck, it was about belief. A team written off by everyone, surviving every storm, finally standing on top of Europe. For Bayern, it became the fuel for revenge. 1 year later, they would come back to win it all. But for Chelsea, this was their destiny. A miracle born not from dominance, but from defiance. From a corner in the 88th minute to eternal glory. When the celebrations finally ended and the confetti settled, one truth remained. This wasn't just a football match, it was a resurrection. Chelsea had spent years chasing the Champions League, only to fall short time and time again. Moscow 2008 still haunted them. The missed penalties, the rain, the heartbreak. But in Munich, all of that pain was washed away. It felt poetic that the man who had cried that night in Moscow, Didier Drogba, was now the one who delivered redemption. That victory didn't just change Chelsea's history, it defined it. It turned doubted veterans into legends, an interim manager into a hero, and a broken team into champions. It was proof that football isn't always about power or possession. Sometimes it's about heart, timing, and refusing to surrender. In that dark night in Munich, when logic said they were finished, Chelsea found something greater than tactics, belief. And from that belief came one of football's purest miracles, a story that started with doubt and ended with immortality. The 2012 final wasn't just a victory, it became a symbol of what football truly is, proof that belief can shatter logic and heart can defeat destiny. For Chelsea, it was the night that changed everything, from almost champions to legends. Lampard, Cole, Cech, and above all Drogba, heroes whose names would echo forever. His last kick for the club delivered the greatest prize of all. For Bayern, the pain turned into fuel. 1 year later, they came back stronger and claimed redemption. But even then, nothing could erase Munich 2012, because that night wasn't about tactics or luck. It was about survival, faith, and the power of one moment. A single corner, a single header, a miracle born in the darkest hour.